Oi, what's happening? My name's Chris, aka Snackophagus. So, I think I'm just going to ramble for a little bit and see what happens here. So, this video is going to be about the 5 mistakes that I see or I think that you might make as a beginner photographer, particularly in the landscape genre, because these are all mistakes that I've made many years ago. It might be useful for me to share them with you so you can avoid doing them and get a little head start on taking photos and becoming that world famous photographer, which I'm sure you're bound to be. So number 1 is getting over obsessed with the gear. Now I get it because I'm guilty of this as much as anybody else. It's real good fun to go on all the camera websites and the rumor sites and flick through them, checking out all the latest and greatest gear and lusting over that $2,000, $10,000, $20,000 camera. I do it a lot actually. I quite enjoy it, so I'm not going to hold it against you as long as you don't hold it against me. But it's not very good for you developing as a photographer because you put a lot of emphasis on the idea that the gear is what takes the photo and makes it good. You in fact hear that quite often. People will sometimes say to photographers, "Oh, I really like that photo, you must have a really good camera." And sometimes they can take that as a bit of an insult because they know that the camera doesn't really have too much to do with the quality of the image. When you think about it, the difference between a pro grade camera and an amateur camera is whose hands they're in, because the professional photographer will be able to take a great picture with even the most basic of cameras, whereas the amateur or the not very good photographer is going to take a bad photo with either of those cameras. You know, that's just the way things go. If you practice more, you get better, and the gear that you use is not as important. A lot of these great cameras and professional cameras, a lot of the money is actually, or a lot of the reason they cost money is because of the build quality. They need to be bashed around by professionals. They're a working camera. So as long as you're not looking to drop your camera down the side of a mountain or get it smashed up as a gig or something, you don't actually need all that build quality in there. The amateur cameras are built well enough for everyday use, so why spend that extra money on those features that you're not going to use? In fact, a lot of the features on the pro bodies, most people would never need to use them. It's about making it easier to get the shot, but it doesn't mean that the actual picture or the image is any better. I've heard people say that they want to get into photography, but they're waiting to upgrade their camera from a 5-year-old one that their auntie got them as a Christmas present. But you shouldn't bother doing that, or you shouldn't restrict yourself to that. Get out there, get practicing, get shooting, get better. And number 2 on the list is that it's actually going out and shooting. So many people don't do this. They want to get into photography, but then they don't actually go out and shoot. I know loads of people who've bought DSLRs over the years and they've never taken them out. All they do is shoot pictures in their back garden or their living room. They take pictures of their dogs or their friends in their house. You're not going to get any better at photography doing that, and you're going to be disappointed with the results. When you think about it, most of what makes a good photo is the subject matter, and you have to go out and find that subject matter, whether that's landscape photography or shooting a model or shooting a gig or something like that. You have to be there to experience it and get those photos. In other words, I'm trying to say here is you can't polish a turd. If you've got a bad subject matter, it's going to be a bad subject matter no matter what. You know, even the best photographers in the world, I was going to say they can't make a bad subject look good. They probably can make it look better, but they still can't make it look as good as a good subject matter. A bad picture of the Grand Canyon is going to be better than a good picture of your backyard, unless you've got an amazing backyard. I don't know where you live or what your backyard's like. It could be amazing. Your backyard could be the Grand Canyon. I don't know, do I? But you get the point I'm trying to make here. You should definitely go out and shoot as much as you can, as often as you can to begin with. Shoot anything and everything, but get out and go and shoot. Following on from this is shooting at the wrong time of day. Now, you've probably heard this, or maybe you've not if you're completely new to photography. The best time of day to shoot landscape photos is either first thing in the morning or last thing at night? No, first thing at night. That's, in other words, sunrise or sunset. The sun is much lower in the sky, so you get a much softer light, and it's normally very golden in colour, though this gives you a much better chance of getting a good photograph. After all, photograph is about the art of capturing light, So if you've got nice light, that's half the battle. And the best light happens at sunrise and sunset, or if you want to do the blue hour, which is another nice time to shoot, and I like this, just before sunrise and just after sunset. That's the best time if you want to do night photography, because there's still some definition in the sky. It's not flat black. You can see clouds, you can see a bit of detail. So they're great times to go and shoot. Now, obviously, these can be a bit inconvenient. Sunrise is early in the morning. Who wants to get up and go and do that? And sunset can be any time of day from, in the UK anyway, from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon to about 10 o'clock at night. So it can be a bit of a pain. You can't maybe always get there to shoot at those times, but if you do, your photos will look so much better. This is one of the keys with landscape photography, that what makes things look so good is the light that they capture. The worst time of day is to go at sort of 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you've got really harsh, bright sunlight, particularly on a clear sky day. You're going to have very harsh shadows, the lighting's not going to look nice, and you're going to be disappointed with those photos and maybe not understand why. Now, if you want to go out and shoot in the middle of the day, the best days for doing this on, in my opinion, are really heavily overcast days, particularly if there's some bad weather, because you can get dramatic photographs in those situations. Again, the light is much softer because it's being diffused by the clouds. You can have a bit of trouble with getting kind of depth and definition in your shots at this time of day because everything can be a bit flat, but it's better than that harsh light. And particularly if you can get a picture with kind of a storm rolling in or something like that, it's dramatic, it looks good. It's the same with sunsets as well, isn't it, really? They're dramatic, there's some sort of oomph to them that's better than just the plain normal boringness of an average day. And if you're lucky enough to get some good storm clouds at sunset time, you can get some of the best light you'll ever be able to get, and you'll get some amazing pictures. So yeah, going out and shooting, but going out at the right time to get the best shots possible. Another one I see people doing all the time is shooting at the same height, either eye height, or they've got their tripod sort of set up at this height, and they're shooting like that time and time and time again. Now, unless you're 10 foot tall or you're only a few inches tall, the chances are that I'm going to be roughly the same height as you, and we're going to see exactly the same things from those positions. So it's a little bit boring. It's how everybody sees the world. Now, you often hear about that with photographers. Oh, you're seeing the world through his or her eyes. You're seeing it through their lens. But if you're looking at it through the same height, you're seeing it from a very similar way as everybody else is seeing those things. What's much better is if you can either get really high or you can get down nice and low. Now, nice and low is obviously a bit easier. You can get down, you can get objects in the foreground that would be made bigger because they're closer to the camera and emphasize those things, or get up nice and high. You can see angles that people don't normally see of things. You know, changing up the perspective is one of the best ways to get a unique shot. And normally if you can get a unique shot, it's a better shot than if you're getting the shot that everybody else is getting. Again, you might want to be able to see things a different way by, you know, getting in the foliage and looking out from it, or having things covering the lens slightly or whatever, but it's doing things that are a little bit different from everybody else. Now, the only way you're going to discover these is if you try, and with a digital camera there's no problem with trying. You're not going to run out of film unless you've bought a really cheap memory card from about 20 years ago and you've only got like 20 shots you can fit on it or something. You're going to be able to just shoot away until your heart's content. So don't be afraid of taking those bad shots. Every photographer has a million bad shots, probably a ratio of about 100 to 1 from bad shots to good shots. So don't be afraid of doing that. You know, take the risks, have a little look around, have a play around, shoot from all the different angles and see what's best. You might be able to find a unique angle that's unique to you, and that gives you the edge over the other photographers who've all set up their tripod for a comfortable height, which just makes it easy to shoot, but it doesn't lend anything to the actual photograph. And number 5 is having no focal point in their picture. Now, this is in any type of photography, but mostly landscape photography I see this mistake made in, and I see it quite a lot when I go out and shoot. I like to go out and I'll shoot at sunset, and I'll be in places where there's actually lots of other people shooting, normally with their phone, and they'll see this sunset and they all start taking photos of the sunset. Now, this can mean that you get a really plain picture. I mean, I know sunsets are nice and they are nice, but what I think you need to do is you need to take a picture of something at sunset. if you take a picture of a car at sunset, or a castle, or even just a tree as the focal point, there needs to be something in there that's the main thing that's drawing your eye to it. Sunset is just the time of day to get the nice light. It's not actually the thing. And you also don't want to have multiple focal points. You want one dominant focal point within the photograph, something that takes your eye to it, and you can actually say, you know, what's this photo of? Oh, it's of a lighthouse. Yeah, there might be some rocks by it, but there's also a nice sunset in the background, lighting it nicely, but there's not also a Lamborghini and a helicopter in the shot at the same time, because that's just going to become confusing. It needs to be one thing that draws your eye in, and that's what you're taking a photo of. So if next time you're out and you see a wonderful sunset and you've got your camera, yeah, by all means take a shot of that, but try taking some of something, even if it's like the lamppost and the sunset behind it, or a nice building or something, just something that is in the picture that the picture can be of, and it will improve your pictures. You'll very rarely see great photographs by professional photographers which are just of a sunset. They'll be of a mountain at sunset, or a forest at sunset, or the lake at sunset. So just try doing that, step back a little bit, try and include what's around you, and you'll get a better shot. One last one, let's say it's not post-processing your photographs. Now this can be through shooting in RAW originally and taking the photo into Lightroom and making massive changes to it, and you really can make massive changes in Lightroom, and you can make a photo really shine in Lightroom. And I'd recommend that you learn how to use Lightroom and you do shoot in RAW. It's the best way of taking a photo. But even if you're shooting in JPEG and transferring it onto your phone even, you can make small tweaks to it. Just add a little bit more contrast or a little bit more saturation, can really improve an image. And it's something that people sometimes shy away from or feel intimidated by. But again, with modern technology and digital files, you can't really go wrong. Yes, you can make mistakes and do it wrong, but don't be scared of doing that. You're not going to break anything or destroy anything. As long as you've got a backup of the file and you don't save over the top of it, then experiment, go into Photoshop if you've never tried it before, take a tutorial online, look at them, free ones on YouTube or whatever, and just make that step. It seems scary at first because if you've never done Photoshop or Lightroom, wow, there's a million different options in there to get your head around. But actually there's only a few key ones, core ones, that you really need to master or even just learn slightly to be able to improve your photos. For me, when I discovered Lightroom and taking photos in RAW and editing them in Lightroom, I had this moment where I was like, wow, that's the difference between the amateurs and the pros. I didn't know they were doing that. I would look at photos that people had taken and think, how the hell did they get a shot like that? That's just out of this world. They are so good at photography. And then when I saw how to do it, or when I saw how people were using Lightroom, I was like, oh, that's what it is. I just didn't know what technology they had. I was naive to that. I was ignorant to it. It wasn't that they were amazing photographers, which a lot of them were, but what I was impressed by was the post-processing, which I didn't know was going on. So I felt a little bit cheated. In fact, I felt a little bit like, you know, they were keeping a secret from me that I didn't realize. I'd gone out and taken photos before and thought, mine are rubbish compared to these. But the difference was editing it in Lightroom or Photoshop. Anyway, that's the tips for starting out, or the mistakes that you should try and avoid when you're first starting out. Something for you to think about. Hopefully you got something out of this video. If you did, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell all your friends, write to the Queen of England and let her know how good this video was, and that she should subscribe to the channel as well. And see you around. Trot.